making a copycat Giordano's deep dish pizza. Their deep dish pizza, they call it a stuffed deep dish because there are 2 layers of dough in their deep dish. So what I have is a 9-inch springform pan that I have put my first layer of dough into. And I used the dough from my stuffed crust pizza recipe. It actually makes 2 pizzas. So I just cut the dough in half, rolled it out until it's about 1/8 of an inch thick, and then I put it in here, cut around the edges to make sure it's smooth. Also, before I did that, I took a stick of butter and just kind of lined the springform pan and edges with it. Your dough will not stick to the pan. I just did that to add a little bit of flavor. And also, I wanted to mention you don't have to use a 9-inch springform pan. You can just use a regular 9-inch baking pan. So that'll work as well. So I've got that. I've got my other piece of dough right here. I have got about a little over a pound of shredded mozzarella. The toppings I'm going to use today is just pepperoni, but you can use whatever you want. Another tip is, because this cooks for a while, if you're using sausage, you can just take raw sausage and throw chunks of it in the bottom, and it'll cook up, and you don't have to bake or cook the sausage before you put it in. I've also got about a cup of pizza sauce. You want to use a thicker pizza sauce for Giordano's. I'm using marinara, and I added a little bit of garlic and basil to it. I'm probably going to use anywhere between 3/4 and a full cup. And then I'm also going to top it with some Parmesan cheese. So this is a traditional Giordano's technique that they do, and I'm going to get it started. So the first thing you do, a deep dish pizza is like a reverse pizza. You put your toppings on, then your cheese, then you put your middle layer of crust, and then you put your sauce to top it. So first I'm going to throw in some pepperoni. And I'm going to probably throw in a decent amount because there's a lot of cheese. It's a thick pizza. There's a lot of cheese, so it can take a little extra topping. Get those in there. Double them up. And just a few more. So I've got it layered up pretty decent with pepperoni. Now I'm going to add the cheese. Since I'm using all the cheese and I just touched the meat, I'm not going to bother washing my hands because I'm just going to use all the cheese and put it back. So like I said, I'm using about a pound, and I'm just going to sprinkle it all over evenly. And I'm using a lot of cheese because Giordano's, they're famous for their copious amounts of cheese and their huge cheese pull that they get when they cut the pizza open. So that's why I'm going to use a bunch. And plus, just, cheese. Cheese is good shit. And this amount of cheese is gonna bring it up pretty high. It's gonna be a tall pizza. And just kind of get in there semi-evenly. so now it's layered up pretty full with the cheese. And now the next step, which is the most pain in the ass step, is putting your second layer of dough in there, and you just kind of lay it on. Get it to come to the bottom. I don't know if you can tell what I'm doing. And then just kind of lifting these and pressing it into the cheese. Making sure it's flat. And then you're going to press the edges into the crust. Again, this is the pain in the ass part, but it's worth it. I'm super excited. I have had Giordano's from Indianapolis. I've never had Giordano's from Chicago, so I'm not sure if there is any difference. I know it's a chain, but you know, they always say pizza from Chicago is legit Chicago. So Giordano started in Chicago. It is a traditional Chicago deep dish pizza. It's one of the most famous deep dish pizza restaurants in Chicago, along with like Lou Malnati's. Other places like Lou Malnati's, they don't double layer or do a stuffed deep dish like this. But this is traditional to Giordano, so this is how I'm doing it. I might make a copycat Lou Malnati's later. But for now, I've really been wanting to make this one. So, alright, now that I got it pressed up there, I'm just going to take my knife and cut the excess off. I'm really happy I have extra dough because I might use that to make some Italian zeppole. Those are deep fried Italian donuts, just made in Italy. They're made not from pizza dough. They're made with more of a oh god, can't think of the thing, like a cream puff type dough. But in like the tri-state area, a lot of people know zeppole or zeppoles as they're called up there. And it's just straight pizza dough. You drop it in the deep fryer, you roll it in some sugar as soon as it comes out, and they're really good. So I'm just going to make sure this is fully pressed together. Don't want it to be too thick. Okay. Alright, so now the last steps is to top it with your pizza sauce. Again, I'm using marinara. You want it, Giordano's traditionally uses a thick pizza sauce. So I'm just going to put that all on here. And just spread it evenly around. As even as I can. Goodness. Yeah, and the sides of this pan are a little high, so the edge of the crust is going to be a little taller on this one. A traditional 9-inch cake pan is not going to be this tall, so it'll look a little bit more traditional, but so I'll have a little bit of a taller crust, but it'll still be a deep dish. So let's see, I think I'm going to get a little bit more marinara. So that was almost a cup right there. I'm just going to put a little bit more on just to make it like a full cup to like a cup and a quarter. because again, it's a lot of cheese. But you put however much marinara you want on there. If you like light marinara, even though it's like a lot of cheese and a lot of crust, then do that. Do however you want to do it. But I'm just trying to do the copycat, so I'm gonna try to put the usual amount on. Okay. Last but not least, top it with some parm. Okay. And I love it when people put like baked Parmesan into their pizza because it just gives it a nice, tangy, almost kind of like a nutty flavor. Because Parmesan, it tastes a little nutty. And I'm gonna put a decent amount on there because why the fuck not? Alright. This is what she looks like. And I'm gonna put this in my oven. I have got my oven, I've got a pizza stone in my oven on the middle rack. It's been preheating at 450 for about 15 minutes now. So I'm gonna set this on the rack, or on the pizza stone. And it's gonna cook for about 35 minutes. If you roll your dough to an 8-inch thick, it should cook all the way through for about 35 minutes. You may need a couple more minutes, just depending on how your dough ends up turning out and the density of it. But it's usually right around 35. So I'm gonna check it at the 35-minute mark. Check kind of around the edges, make sure the dough will kind of compress away from the edge of the pan. So you'll be able to kind of take a spatula and see what your edges look like. If it's getting nice and golden brown, it's probably ready to come out. So I will do that, and then I'm going to take it out, let it rest for maybe like 5 minutes, cut it open, and I'll show you how it turned out. Ow. Alrighty, so here is my copycat Giordano's pizza. Like I said, I put a lot of parm on it, so it did definitely caramelize on the top, but it tastes really good. It's not burnt or anything like that. And I've got a lot of cheese in there, as you can kind of tell from that. And like I said, putting a little bit more marinara on this because it's got so much cheese really helps. So that is her. And now I'm going to give it an official taste. Come on, buddy. Oh, yeah. That is really good. I liked the extra Parmesan on there. I know it looks burnt. It makes it look a little funky. If you don't like the way it looks, I mean, it's not burnt, it tastes great, but if you don't like the way it looks, just sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan on there, and it'll look mostly red on the top, just like a normal deep dish. But Giordano's, they do sprinkle Parmesan on the top, not quite as much as I did, but I like a little bit more of that flavor. But holy cannoli, there's so much cheese and it's so good. I don't know if you can see that, but oh, it's really good. The crust cooked up great. It got nice and golden, and good flavor with the Parmesan. The marinara was good. I just added a little bit of garlic powder and basil to it. It was just a basic marinara. And the mozzarella tastes great. The pepperoni tastes great in there. I think this is a really good recipe. I think it's comparable to the Giordano's that I've had in Indy. Excuse me, like I said, I've never had Giordano's from Chicago, so not quite sure if the ones in Indy taste the same as the ones in Chicago, but I'd like to find out one day. But this is a pretty damn good deep dish pizza recipe, so if you thought it was interesting and you want to give it a try, hope you enjoy it. And I cooked it for about 38 minutes. It took a little bit longer, but I knew it was done by the time it was golden brown. So if you give it a shot, enjoy. It's really fucking good.